Hello gamers, this is Elwood and Kim from ThatMomentin.com, and this is Game Warp. Up next, our review of Shock Tactics. Shock Tactics is a debut game from the indie first-person shooters. It sees your team of trailblazers, or the first wave of free space pioneers exploring a newly discovered alien planet. While searching the hostile world for alien technology, you lead your team into tactical combat against pirates, alien creatures, and troops of the Imperial Consortium. In the game, it requires you to set up outposts and dig sites to exploit the secrets that the new world holds in order to stand against the incoming invasion, and everything is out there for taking, but nothing will come for free. Now, for anyone who's obviously familiar with XCOM, this game will look familiar already, but before we obviously get too deep into this one, I'm just going to start with our opening thoughts on this game. So, Kim, what was your opening thoughts on Shock Tactics?
Well, Shock Tactics is very nice to look at. I found that the setup and the whole idea and of just using the single player tactics and, like a board where you have places to move and everything and all the buildings and the environment itself looks really nice. But I did have some issues with it, mainly with the fact that there were some things that I thought maybe it's just bugs because it's early in release and they're still working out patches and stuff.
A turn-based strategy game. From the look of the game, I said if you're a fan of XCOM, this will look very familiar already, as it essentially looks very much like a reskinned version of XCOM, however, with a few tweaks here and there. Most notably, with XCOM, this requires you to move your soldiers around and build bases. As such, you are given for each soldier and character is allocated a certain amount of movement points in which they can move and shoot, and it's your job to obviously plan and utilize your movements to the best of your points ability. However, unlike XCOM, the game has been tweaked so that you're now no longer just running into combat and encountering enemies. The game actually has a nice feature that if you encounter an enemy, you will stop, so you're not going to use up all your points running out into the middle of nowhere to find yourself ambushed by 5 or 6 foes. It will actually stop your foe, let you know the alien or opposition is there, and allow you to readjust your strategy to find the best approach to tackling the threat. However, in doing so, this does highlight one of the main issues with the game, as it soon develops into the standard format of you'll find a enemy, put your character into Overwatch, and basically try and outflank them, because the AI is nothing short of absolutely horrible in this game, as we found ourselves just continuously using the one tactic where you put yourself into Overwatch and the enemy will generally just charge towards you, leaving you just to pick out wave after wave of enemies. There is no real strategy, and it feels the very little challenge once you sort of nail down this key mechanic of the game. But Kim, obviously, coming to yourself, obviously this is a different sort of game than you're probably used to playing, I'm right in saying. How did you actually find the mechanics of the game, obviously this being a turn-based strategy game rather than just like a Command and Conquer where you're just constantly clicking and making adjustments for your troops?
I actually do like this sort of game. I think the first time that I really sat down to play one of these games was for an upcoming game that I played at a festival, which we also interviewed the development for, Children of Zodiac. They have a similar style, but obviously a different setting. I like this sort of thing in one aspect that I like the turn-based aspect in various ways, like where you can actually move forward, you can really see the things happening, and you can really observe around you. And I think that's really nice, and I think that everything does flow really well for this. I mean, Shock Tactics, I mean, you get skills and you get to use them, I guess, and it's hard because it feels like it's like you said, it's really like a one pony show where Overwatch kind of is the go-to, and even when you really look at all the other things, everything seems to have so much more repercussions. But one of my main issues with it was the fact that it took me forever to figure out like how many APs I had left, which is action points, and which bases on you have to use all the action points in order to end your turn. When you run out of action points, you need to end your turn and move to, then it's your enemy's turn.
Yeah, and with the actual combat sequence in here, this is just again enough of the issues with the game in that when it comes to the actual randomness, that the game seems to be constantly biased towards the AI player. So I found myself having more luck if I'm trying to pick off enemies at medium to long range, where if someone could be completely on top of myself and I could still go and hit them. And I mean, I'm not expecting for every shot to land. I mean, even if I landed 90% of the shots, it would have been better than I was pretty much achieving here. And it just felt that because of this randomness, you were constantly using the Overwatch feature to try and maximize your odds and better your chances in a combat situation. So it didn't do much to really give me any sort of sense of strategy to this game. It's sort of like you have one strategy, get your soldiers into Overwatch and outflank your enemy. That's pretty much it. You can apply this to pretty much any situation you're in. Yes, the game tries to throw in factors such as different types of cover that you can go behind that will obviously increase the percentage of failure rate for your opponent trying to shoot you. But it just felt very run-of-the-mill. There is nothing new that I'm getting from this game. We have a very generic storyline here. We're also featured with very generic-looking players, and we just have a group of just space marines that could be said as they're facing generalized alien foes. This isn't giving us anything that we haven't certainly seen before, and if anything, this felt that a game that was produced probably a little out of time, bringing back memories of Carmageddon Max Carnage, a game that felt that if it had come out earlier and been for a lower console, or in this case certainly earlier within the PC lifespan, then it would certainly be a lot more accepted than I'm seeing here. And yes, we know that this is a first release for an independent company, and that we perhaps should be a little less brutal on this, because as I said, it doesn't obviously have the advantages of like a AAA title where you have huge team working on said game. You obviously have to make exceptions, but still, it's just made me think, well, I could just generally go off and play XCOM and have the same experience that I'm having here. Yes, if you're done with XCOM and looking for a new experience, perhaps this will provide it for you. Certainly, the difference in price tag, XCOM with its $40 price tag, this with a $14 price tag, is going to make it a little more appealing, especially if you're not wanting to splash out on something you're a little unfamiliar with. Maybe this will be seen as your warm-up game to, obviously, before you move on to XCOM, but for myself, if I have XCOM, I think I'm just going to go and play that instead of this game. And I feel that, yes, it probably is sounding that I'm sort of like bashing this down and saying that this is nothing but a reskin version of XCOM, but
I think that coming from myself, which I haven't played XCOM because this isn't really my type of game, just for the fact that, you know, I kind of appreciated a lot of the effort, mostly the fact that I guess there were things that needed polishing, like the accuracy of where your player was situated, positioned towards your enemy. And it was nice to see the percentage, but sometimes it felt that even the percentage felt very random, as in it wasn't polished enough that when it was a low rate, it was not going to hit, or it was going to hit. It really, I don't know. I mean, I felt that mechanic sometimes seemed to, I guess it didn't seem to be as good as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
There are things that are very unclear in the game, as in just seeing where everything is and figuring out where everything is. I did like the fact that they did a decent job with the voice. They had voice over to read the script and tell you your missions, and I thought that was very nice. It was, you know, it was done reasonably well. It didn't sound like it was very forced, or it didn't sound really bad. I mean, there are a lot of redeeming features. I think that that's where I become a little bit more lenient as a debut game, and as someone new coming into this, where I don't have a lot of experience. I don't have XCOM unlike Elwood, and you know, for me, I thought it was a solid effort. There were definitely issues. I mean, both of us had issues starting the game. The game probably, like, as of this point, we've really just had a first look of it. We don't we played a few missions, and but this game feels like it's going to be large because there's like it takes up an incredible amount of room. One of the
Oh,
bigger games that are on Steam for sure to download, and there are issues where there's bugs, and it's definitely going to need a lot more patches in order to feel like it runs really well and that their AI is a little bit more polished. And I really do hope that um, they will polish up this game a little bit more, seeing as it is their debut.
yeah, it's obviously hard when you're dealing with any early release game to look at the technical aspects. And obviously, yes, this game has suffered from numerous bugs, as we've seen with this with the release copies that have been sent out. Certainly with load up, the game, certainly during this testing period, we suffered numerous crashes. Certainly not helped by the save feature, which meant that you only have essentially an auto save feature, so there's no opportunity to sort of save continuously go along. So you could be getting so far in a mission and then it just crashes out on you. Worse still is that the fact that you obviously have the oops message from your Steam, which when you're on the 7th or 8th crash becomes a little less funny and a little more infuriating. But that's obviously something that can obviously be corrected through further patches, and certainly and would hope that the same would be done with obviously enemy AI and the randomness. I would hope this would be something a bit improved the longer the game is out there. I mean, obviously this is a team of around 7 to 10 people that have worked on this game. As you mentioned already, Kim, this takes up a staggering amount of memory on your computer. I found myself having to clear off so much space just to get this to run, and there's AAA games that don't use this much space, and you would expect something, I don't know, something a little bit more than we obviously got here. I don't know why this game takes up as much space as it does, and certainly it's something which, if the game is having this much issues, it certainly sort of puts it at the top of the pile. If I'm looking for something to take off, then I'm going to be obviously looking to this to go first, because it's not giving me anything to really sink my teeth into and to sort of hold my attention. Whereas the bugs are only sort of adding to that. Unlike yourself, though, Kim, I did find the actual voice acting in this game kind of distracting, and wish that I probably should have just muted it, because at times it just felt a little bland, a little going through the motions. And obviously it's an independent title; they probably can't afford, top A voice actors to do this. But it just felt. I don't know. It just felt a little flat, and it took me out of the setting than perhaps just giving it a general text role. Yeah, I feel that there's certainly a base game here. It's just, again, it struggles from just repetition of obviously things that we've seen before and obviously seen done better. Yes, we obviously have aspects such as like base building. I think the explorations aspect is certainly nice, and certainly the basis of the combat mechanics is certainly a refreshing change over XCOM's. The idea that the game will actually stop you so you can adjust your decisions when it comes to movement when you have enemies appear, because you're obviously dealing with this fog of war. So you can't see what lies ahead. You can only see once you get close enough to that area for it to be sort of sprung on you. So that was certainly a nice improvement, and I think that perhaps with some tweaks and patches, then this game could be something interesting. Certainly with the price tag, it's certainly an appealing prospect. Is just at the moment, it's just not there right now. It just feels that there's things that needed to be polished out on this one before it was put out for release. So at the moment, it's buggy and feels incomplete. But there's certainly something there, but it's at the moment it's just not working quite right.
So what is your score for Shock Tactics?
Score for this one, I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. It's certainly not the worst game that we've played at the moment. It's certainly also not the best. I feel there's just better examples of this game out there that you can obviously play. Yes, a lot of them are AAA titles and more established titles, but I just feel that you could essentially get the same experience with other games. And as I said, even at the low price point, is the actual issues that we suffered throughout the gameplay just really detracted from the whole experience. And I just feel that at the moment it will be a 2.5, but certainly one to keep an eye on.
Okay, I will give it 3 stars. To find more game reviews, head over to thatmomentin.com. And to get gaming news every single day, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast.